There's a strange feeling that comes with returning to a place you thought life had already moved on from. For some, post-secondary education is expected at 18.
The main thing I want from you is I want the raw, authentic answers. I don't want no
Oh, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you.
Then perfect.
For others, it becomes possible at 40, 50, 60, 70, or even maybe at 80.
Especially middle-class young people. I think life's a little bit too easy for them.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
Not because life slowed down, but because life happened. Careers, children, loss, survival.
I became the primary caregiver for my daughter for two years. So that was really difficult. I couldn't do my PhD work the way that I had desired or wanted to.
Responsibilities that demanded attention long before personal dreams ever had the chance. And yet, despite all of that, some people still choose to start or come back, not to relive youth, but to reclaim something they never got to fully explore in the first place.
But I think very surprising to me was how easy it was to fit in with the class. And I'm not exactly sure why that is.
There is no single timeline for reinvention. There's no age limit on learning. There's no deadline on purpose. And while the education system continues to really consider what true inclusivity really means, these students are already teaching us something far greater, that courage evolves, that identity can be rebuilt, that growth can return after loss, and that beginning again may be one of the most courageous things a person can do.
So my name is Mike Nancy. I'm a PhD student at OISE studying private school teacher education. My journey has been like most people, starting from undergrad, undergrad right out of high school, completing a degree that I thought I would be working in for the rest of my life in the field of business, and then realizing shortly after that it wasn't the right fit for me, and deciding to go back to school to pursue what I thought would be my professional goal.
My name is Florian Schuber. I'm 92 years old. I returned school when I was age 41 to law school.
My name is Darine Fatima. I'm currently a PhD student at OISE, and I'm studying education and leadership and policy, and I'm specializing in comparative international development education. Yay! Okay.
So my name is Jo, and I'm back here at school doing a master's in health sciences at U of T in the Translational Research Program, or the TRP.
I think as a young child, I had always seen my parents struggling, and part of their struggle was just not having the appropriate qualifications to work here in Canada. And that left a very strong impression on me, because I realized from a very young age that it was a struggle for immigrants in this country that didn't have the qualifications that they needed in order to do professionally well.
So when I came to Canada, I felt there's more that I could do related to leadership, which particularly policy. I've seen policies that I've worked for a while in social work, and I've seen that certain policies do not really work for service users, and I hoped I could change that. And I've seen the path on education and leadership and policy helpful so that I can engage in that field and shape policy and see how it might work better for our communities.
I always felt that I wasn't done, felt like I wasn't quite finished in the academic formal world. And I then had this sort of experience of publication, so a little bit more academia dangled, like that carrot. And then, honestly, the timing was just so right. U of T offered a translational research program. I could walk to campus. All my kids are now out of the house. 2 of them are in university, and 1 of them is at a boarding school for high school, and the timing was just right. The application deadline was like exactly when I was searching it up, so it just felt like everything aligned.
So I was a public school teacher for 9 years, And then I had my daughter, and I stayed home for almost 10 years. During that period, I worked on my BA because I didn't have that background. And one day my husband, who was a practicing lawyer, came home to tell me that Osgoode Hall Law School had a new program for mature students and non-traditional students, and that I should consider applying. I was actually quite shocked at that, and I did apply. And I was very lucky to have been chosen as one out of 300 people. It was a class of 30 people, and so I entered law school.
There were several series of moments that made me realize that I needed to go back to school. The first was working as an uncertified teacher and realizing that there was only so far that I could go without the qualification. So there was a professional need to go back to school in order to work as a professional teacher. But that need was very quickly met after I finished that first degree, that B.Ed. And then it became more about achieving a higher level of professional competence.
Yes, well, I never thought of it in terms of courage, but absolutely. And I was totally unprepared for entering law school. My background, my education, my experience, with all of it not relevant to law school. And so I had a really tough time for the first term of my first year. It was intense. It took all my time. Well, I knew I wanted to do something that was not teaching children again, and I was leaning towards a Montessori type of education when this all happened. And it truly was an opportunity that would never have been available to me in my life because of my background. And it did seem kind of silly or not productive for me not to take advantage of such an opportunity, and so I did.
I think we worked on a project, a quality improvement project at work, and I ended up writing up a paper with a group of people off the side of my desk, but we actually pursued publication and we got it published. And when I was reflecting on, that was a really great process. It started me thinking back about how much I really liked being a formal student and how much I liked academia. And so I decided, well, what exactly about that project got me excited? And I think it was because we found a gap. There was an unmet need. We tried something, it didn't work. We tried another thing and it worked. And then we got some significant results. And then we decided to share it with people. So we wrote it up and we were thinking, yeah, maybe someone else would find this useful and they could do it in their work for quality improvement. And I thought, like, what's that called? So I'm like, hey, Google. So like, that sounds like it's probably translational research. I'm like, oh my gosh. So the timing was just really right.
Well, I initially came to Canada to pursue my PhD. However, that plan did not work as intended. So I had to start from scratch, get another bachelor, get research experience, and then move on to master's. I knew I wanted to do a PhD since I was doing my master's, and I knew it's going to be a challenge with, family responsibilities and such. But I think what brought me back is that I always wanted to do more on the policy and leadership side. I've seen things that I wanted to change, which I could not previously, and I thought this might be the path to it.
I think my friends were a little bit more shocked, only because they were imagining themselves going back to school from their own perspectives. But I knew where I was in my life, and I knew that with the supports that I had, that it was going to work. And I think that confidence, knowing that I was able to, once I found out I got in, it was going to work no matter what. So I felt I think a little bit of empowerment there too. Like, I'm in. They think I'm smart enough. They think I'm okay. And I guess I'm not too old. That's what they tell me anyway.
I didn't have kids in my undergrad. I had all the time in the world to do whatever I wanted. I didn't have responsibilities towards my parents or real financial responsibilities that I had to factor in. My time was my own. So facing those realities, the further I got in my master's, specifically in the PhD, those were really difficult realities to navigate and come to terms with, and they were real.
I think the next couple of thoughts were, how the hell am I going to do this? And I think that the determination and just realizing that this will work, so that kind of sense of like there is no option here but to succeed, did help for sure. But again, it's the supports that you have. For me, as I've mentioned, the timing was right, the supports were there. I was very blessed for an opportunity to go back. And so for me, that was amazing. And I think the preparation was, I better go buy a few new pairs of clothes. But this is what they get. They just get me, Old Lady Joe. Costco and everything.
Walking onto campus can feel like entering a world that was never truly designed with them in mind. Not openly hostile, not intentionally alienating, just quietly unfamiliar. Technology moves faster. Classrooms feel younger. Conversations feel different. Even asking for help can feel challenging when everyone assumes you should already know how things work.
So I think that what's really interesting to me is that I'm learning things from my classmates that didn't even exist when I was first an undergraduate student or in my occupational therapy professional degree. So we would go to the library and we would take out journals and photocopy them. We didn't have all of these really neat technology adaptations and, dare I say, supports. There's a bit of a funny joke where in one of my groups we kind of made a pact where they would remind me that I could use ChatGPT and Claude, and that my goal was to remind them not to use it. So we had this sort of interesting agreement that we were going to both use it, but not too much, or try to use it more, just because that's not the way I learned. You don't just open up Claude and say, okay, give me 3 research articles, and write me a paper. Like, that's just beyond me.
And it was a real struggle for me. Luckily, when difficult things happen, good things happen as well. And there were a group of young mothers in the second year of law school that were very helpful to me with tips and ideas. So they calmed me down. There was also a group of young people who kept their eye on me the entire time I was in law school and helped me whenever they could. And I think the most important thing that happened to me was that I had a friend who was a mathematician, and he sat me down and helped me to develop a very disciplined way of creating my weeks at school. And once I got that in my head, I could then realize that I could have time to study, time for my family, time for friends, and time for rest. And that made a big, big difference in calming me down. And once I passed my first set of exams, I knew that I could complete successfully. But it was one of the most difficult times in my life. Well, I think if I had to do it again, although I think 50 years ago when I went to school, they didn't have the kind of assistance they have now. But if I was going back today as a mature student, I would certainly ask the university what kind of assistance they could give me to help me plan successfully. And that was not available to me at the time. Also looking back, when I graduated, it was the most exciting time of my life, and I realized there was nothing or almost nothing that I could not do if I really wanted to do it. It was exhilarating, and I don't ever remember having such a feeling in my life.
Some are here after raising children. Some are here after changing careers. Some after surviving divorce, illness, addiction, grief, or years of self-doubt. And because of that, they often approach education differently. Less ego, more intention, not chasing approval, chasing purpose, meaning.
It was scary at first because, as I said, I was a young man living in downtown Toronto, enjoying an income and free time, and I had to come to terms with the reality that going back to school meant saying no to a very comfortable life, saying no to free time, saying no to disposable income, and recognizing that yes, there are costs to going back to school, but the reward is there and it is greater. So it took courage to just take that leap and jump back into it. But as the educational journey continued, it was less about taking the leap and more about developing resilience and perseverance and consistency through all the storms of life. Because there were a lot of things that are thrown at you. So COVID was another one. My daughter was born in COVID and there was no daycares that were available. We were on a waiting list and my wife had to go back to work. I became the primary caregiver for my daughter for two years. That was really difficult. I couldn't do my PhD work the way that I had desired or wanted to. And just navigating those difficulties, recognizing the realities of those situations, coming to terms with them, reaching out to the university for support, and just doing the best you can. Still trying to move forward, but maybe at not the pace and the way that you had thought originally you could.
I wrote a book chapter about this actually, about parenting and navigating parenting and doctoral journey. And there's a myth that's about you balance your professional and personal life, which doesn't really exist. You juggle both all the time. And I don't think you can ever achieve balance. You can prioritize one over the other in certain moments, but you can never achieve balance. That's one. I have a very busy family. And each one has a different schedule, and to be able to make it for these in-person courses has been the biggest challenge. That's one. The second thing is to be able to work in micro intervals. So I don't have a desk time where I sit on my desk for like 5 hours and then I do the coursework or assignment and then I submit. I don't have that luxury. So I've adapted myself to work in micro intervals to be able to complete the tasks that I need to. By the deadline, I would say.
Well, my entire life has been one of challenge. I come from a large family, uneducated. No one finished high school except for me. I had to work from a very young age. And I think it was in my system to just do it. And because I obviously had successes along the way as a young child and as I got older. And so it was in me. I think the toughest time was law school because it was a different language for me. And I had no idea. I would come home to my husband and I'd say, I know they're speaking English, but I have no idea what they're saying. It is a different language and a different philosophy. So I think it all comes from small successes along the way. And you just build on each success.
Why didn't you believe you couldn't achieve it?
It's because community normalizes certain things and sometimes they frame things as if it's out of reach. I don't know if it's just to make it more prestigious or there's a different reason. But at the same time, I think my previous experiences did not really give me enough courage to be able to see myself in that, successful state, I would say. But I would say since I stepped into the current program, the PhD program particularly, I felt that I'm more capable of doing things that I would say I did not even dare to do before.
I think education is probably the best gift that you can give yourself. It changes the way that you think, it changes the way that you behave, you professionally perform better, and when you become better, your whole family becomes better, and everyone around you becomes better. So I know even as a parent, I'm much better at listening to my kids, not reacting right away, because being in academic work forces you to be more reflective, more critical, and to think more deeply. You have to definitely talk with your family about, whether it is the best move, because it is truly a family sacrifice when someone goes back to school. Because you can't be present to your kids or your spouse or your partner the way that you are when you're just working. Because your free time is now going to be spent in some ways studying and doing work, academic work. So you're not going to be present for your family. And that is a big sacrifice. When your kids want to go to the park and you've got to say, I can't go because I've got to do my PhD work. Or there's an event on the weekend and everyone's going out, but you're staying back home. Those are real sacrifices that hurt, but the payoff is also there. Those are some of the negatives, but then you're there for your family in a much deeper, thoughtful way.
Certainly, people that I talked to, they had done their degrees. They were working professionally. They were working in healthcare. But you'd be surprised how many people said, "You're going back to school? I could never see myself doing that." And I think that was very interesting for me. And at first you're like, "Yeah, what am I doing?"
Was that a detractor for you at any point?
I think it just almost reinforced for me that I'm going back because I'm not done, and I never was. And I think maybe that's just for me. That was my own experience. But I think when people gave me that opinion, I just thought, well, that's you, and this is me. And that's good that you have that opinion about yourself, and you know exactly that you are not someone who wants to go back and do a master's degree at an undisclosed age.
I had terrific confidence afterwards that I never had before. And as I said earlier, the fact that I was so challenged and I did it, I felt I could do anything. And in fact, my life has been terrific ever since law school. I've had wonderful opportunities in my professional life, and I've taken them. I don't know that I would have been so open to opportunities before, but now I seem to see them more clearly. Children and the government seem to feel as we get older that we can't do things for ourselves and that we're kind of childlike and they have to look after us. But I say back to them that you can't live to be 80 or 90, be healthy, and have raised a family and not know how to look after yourself. And so that's a novel to a lot of them. During COVID, the children actually curtailed their parents terribly. And they really diminished their lives, not meaning to, trying to help. And they need to understand that we are not children as we get older, and that we can do things by ourselves. So I think that's the lesson I learned, and that's the lesson I hope to convey to them, is to have faith that we are still okay, unless you have dementia or some serious illness. But if you're reasonably healthy, then you can do it.
If you would tell me this maybe 5 years ago, I would say, no, you're kidding. I wouldn't believe it. And just to be able to see that letter, my name is on it, and I'm awarded this for my, the same path that I've taken before in my previous careers is similar, the same values I carry, however, the journey is different. So I want to do something that benefits my community, and this is what I'm doing. So I think that's what I'm happy about.